Hi, I'm CJ Golden.
Hi, CJ. I'm Wendy Green, and welcome to the Caregivers Bakery. This is 30 minutes for you to sit back and relax, join with other caregivers to build a caring community, and learn from each other.
Well, caregivers, after today's show, our introduction is going to be a little different. You're going to be hearing, Hi, I'm CJ Golden, and then we'll all be remembering the voice of Wendy saying, and I'm Wendy Green. Because Wendy is not going to be, well, I was going to say not a part of this show. Wendy will always be a part of the show. But Wendy has another podcast that she does called Hey Boomer, which is phenomenal. Please go. Wendy, do you have that? Could you put that,
Um,
your Hey Boomer?
let's see. Do I have that here?
Well,
I
okay.
can put up my.
Put up your heyboomer.biz. Um,
Thank you.
it is turned out that Wendy is not the superhuman that we all thought she was, and running 2 podcasts a week and all that is involved in it, and then adding the third because we do the sweet spot here. It's much, and my poor friend sitting there in that gorgeous blue shirt with her strawberry colored hair had to come to me after much agonizing and saying, "I can't do this anymore. It's very difficult." And so I said, "Go, go, go. I don't need you."
Yes,
No,
she
that's not
did.
it. Wendy, it's with more than a tinge of sadness that I know that today is our last show together. It's been remarkable. You have brought me back to the Caregivers Bakery. If not for you, we would not be here as the Caregivers Bakery. You rediscovered it. You said, let's do it. And by golly, we did. And with
And
your
you're
tech savvy and your expertise and your caring, hey, folks, I think we done good.
I think you're doing great, CJ. And this is your passion. And Hey Boomer is my passion. And I think, we do best when we follow our calling and our passion. And I'm so excited for you that this is going on, and so sad to not be seeing you every week. Although I'm going to pop in and watch for
Well, I
sure.
hope so. Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
pop in and watch to make sure I'm doing, holding up the fort well.
You're going to do great.
We
So
will, yeah,
before I let you
yes.
go on to the next thing, I'd like you to make sure that everybody knows how to reach out to you and find out the recipe and ask you questions and all of that.
Okay, well, here's the deal. Um, you can reach out to me at authorcjgolden@gmail.com. And when you do that, you will get a return email from me with whatever answers to questions you have, with the recipe for the following week. So that at the end of the show, when Wendy and the guest and I have our tasting party, you will have been able to make that recipe in advance and have a tasting party with us. It is, after all, the Caregivers Bakery. We're going to be baking and cooking together. Um, Also, you'll see during this show that we have the opportunity to have a chat. Put up your comments. We'll read them as we can throughout the show. Ask questions of us, ask questions of our guests, and let's make this as interactive a community as we possibly can.
Yeah,
And,
that's so important.
and
Kathy says hi. Hi, Kathy. Thank you for being here.
yeah, hi, Kathy. Here we go. You've done good. Love to both. Thank you. Um, and Wendy always reminds us, and I will remind you now, be sure to share the show with friends who would benefit from from hearing from our guests and our topics. In the chat, just put the ampersand next to a person's name. They will get that information. They'll get a a what? A sign, a
They'll
sign
get a
from above
notification. Yeah,
that
right.
will
They'll get a
say,
notification.
that's a good
Yeah.
word. That's why I need you. Yeah, and you can
I love.
tag them as you would on a Facebook page,
Yeah,
and
I
they'll
love
get a
what Gail says.
notification.
CJ, do you see that? She says, "We'll
We'll
miss
miss
you,
you,
Wendy.
Wendy.
CJ,
CJ,
you
you
got
got this.
this."
Yeah.
She's very confident. She's got this.
Well, somebody who has got this is our guest for today. She is a superwoman. I hope you all saw her photo on our Facebook page. Her name is Elaine Barlin. We wanted her to wear her cape today. She decided not to. I asked Elaine what her superpower is, and she said, and this is so true because I've known Elaine for a long time. Her superpower is recognizing the needs of her family and her friends and being there to support them. She knows what needs to be done, and she certainly knows what. Oh, Jamie Shea, Elaine is terrific. We know that. Um, Elaine's husband, Mel, was diagnosed with stomach cancer in 2009. They had a rigorous course of treatment and surgeries, and some hopefulness and struggles. And then, and then, as if that wasn't enough, her daughter Dara was diagnosed with breast cancer. Elaine was holding up the fort, being her strong, wonderful self, her superwoman self, while she was working a full-time job. How did you do that, Elaine?
Uh, Hopefully not badly. I was very fortunate to have a lot of support. My job was, uh, they allowed me an incredible flexibility, including their clients also. I mean, I would be having conference calls sitting in my husband's room in Sloan Kettering. And I would have to say, "Oh, I got to leave the call. The doctor just came in."
Oh my
And
gosh.
but they were totally flexible and letting me work whatever hours I could, and never complaining about it. So that was a huge help. I mean, I put the burden on myself because I'm just one of those responsible people. Um, but the real way is you just put one foot in front of the other.
What kind of work were you doing, Elaine?
I was when you work for a small company, I once gave myself the title of assistant chief cook and bottle washer.
Right.
It was a software developer. I programmed, I designed systems, I worked with the customers, I managed projects. So it was, I loved it. And, it was a great feeling. The greatest thing is I think I had more simpatico with the customers than with my fellow programmers. So, and maybe that kind of led to the caregiving. It's like, I think I care about people.
Yeah.
And so, I took care of my customers rather than worrying about making the profit. So it was a really wonderful experience. But I think you're also asking how I managed with the caregiving. And the thing I shared with CJ and Wendy was I blogged. And initially, the people who I loved and loved me were calling constantly. And I might get 20 different calls a day and have to repeat the same story.
Mm.
And I was sometimes tired. We lived in a suburb of New York City. And to get to the hospital where Mel was being treated was 45 minutes if there was no traffic. But this is New York City. The only time there was no traffic was if we went at 5 o'clock in the morning, which we often did. Otherwise, it would take 2.5 hours. So But so I could get home at night and I could be absolutely exhausted and not feel like talking to people. And so I started blogging, and I blundered into a website, and it's not there anymore. But I was able to blog, which is, for those who don't know what that is, I would write up something on a day that something happened, and an email would go out to all the people who had registered with me that they wanted to know when something had happened, and they could get on and comment about what I had written. And just the words of support that I got, and just the words of, whether it be sympathy, sometimes ideas, suggestions, but for the most part, it was just knowing that someone cared. Hi, I'm here, without my having to go through the whole thing again. It was a way of unburdening myself. Towards the end, Mel asked if he could be on the mail, if he could see it.
Aw, that's sweet.
But
And-
I had mixed feelings about that. I gave him the link, but he never actually used it. But I had mixed feelings because, sometimes I just wanted to share how frustrated I was, but I didn't want to share that with him.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was up and down. One of the things that last week's visitor was pointing out that she got me to remember, much of the time he was at Sloan Kettering in New York, which is, if you walk east for a few blocks, you've got the East River Drive to walk on. If you walk west, you've got Central Park. So when he would be sleeping or in some sort of process where I wasn't allowed, I would walk. And that was also, fortunately, he managed to get sick during good weather.
It was very nice of him.
Consider it, right? And then at what point in his journey of illness did your daughter get diagnosed?
It was at the very end, where she was living in New York. We had already moved out to Las Vegas. At one point, the doctors had given him a clean bill of health, and we had someone knock on our door and offer to buy our house in New York. So we kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, I think we're ready. And so we had moved out here, and she was still back in New York when she got sick. She actually came out here to visit us. I don't know what kind of pretense she gave, but she wanted to tell us in person. So she first shared it with me, and we decided that I should be there when she shared it with Mel, because we were afraid he would they were very, very close, and we were afraid he would really have a hard time. But I think he was already so sick at that time, because it was only a couple of months before he passed. Well, maybe about 6 months. But in fact, she was undergoing chemo when he was in the hospital for the last time, or she had just finished chemo and she wasn't allowed to fly. So she didn't see him that last week when he was in the hospital, but she was able to fly for the funeral. So, yeah, I had to fly back and forth to New York to, again, that same company I'd worked for. I continued to work when I moved out here. I was able to work online, and my former boss at the time had his aunt had passed away, and he had inherited her apartment, condo on 63rd Street, right near the hospital, and he let us borrow it before he sold it.
Oh, that was
Sarah was
nice.
able to stay there for treatment, and I stayed with her while she was going to the hospital for treatments.
So you're back in Nevada, and Mel is declining, and you're flying back and forth to New York to help Dara.
Mm-hmm.
You are a superwoman.
You know,
Wow.
when you're doing it, you just put one foot in front of the other, and it just happens. You do the best you can. I'm sure each one felt maybe they weren't getting the attention they would have liked, but fortunately, at the time she was getting the treatment, he wasn't quite that bad. The actual end came very suddenly. He was doing mediocre, but okay, and then it was literally 1 week where he just went down. So at the time I went to her, he was able to manage on his own.
Okay. All right.
And how is Dara now? How is your daughter now?
Where is she? She's waving. She's fine. She's super. She's busy starting up her own business and keeping. She helped me bake last night.
Uh-huh.
She helped me arrange the computer so that it was in a good place, good lighting. She even got me this fancy microphone because she sometimes does podcasts. So
Thank you, Dara.
she, she has been absolutely super to have. It has been very fortunate, the timing, just when she needed a place to stay and the pandemic hit, and I was alone, and I was very fortunate that she said, why don't I come stay with you, and that'll work for both of us. And it has. It's also fortunate I had a spare bedroom.
Exactly.
And some of my friends who would come visit are saying, did you give away my room? So,
Yes.
Elaine, you held up the book.
yes. Yeah.
Explain, please. You were able to have your blogs and the comments that followed from
Right.
your readers.
This is Mel. Yeah.
Hi,
And-
Mel.
Yeah, this is kind of what I had a printout of the blog. I'm not sure. I don't think you can see too much, but
Not
you can
really.
see the bold is who wrote it. I'm going to point to where, okay, this was where I had my comment. I give it a title, and then I would write up the story. Sometimes it was only a sentence, and sometimes it was 5 paragraphs of what had happened that day. I didn't post every day, but either every time something changed
Mm-hmm.
or when we were going through a period where we didn't know if something was going to change, like if he had just had another surgery, which he had several surgeries. So I would post every day, even if nothing happened, just to tell people that nothing happened.
Exactly. So now the blog site that you used, I believe that was Caring Bridge.
No,
Or no.
Care Pages was the one I used. They're no longer in business, but CJ and helped me find one that does exist now.
Yeah,
And
Caring
it's called
Bridge.
caringbridge.org.
That is Caring Bridge.
Is what
Yeah.
I found. Yeah, that's the new one.
Yeah.
And
And
it was wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, I've had friends that have been going through treatment, and they use Caring Bridge, and it's a
Okay.
wonderful way to stay in touch. And
Right.
you know, to, like you said, for your friends to send their thoughts, to let you know ideas, to just say, love you, I'm praying for you, whatever it is that they want to say.
Yes. It was
Yeah.
so helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Emotionally, to know that people cared.
yeah.
It really, um, I can't say enough how much, and having been able to print it out, I don't know whether Caring Bridge has an option for that.
I
And
don't
it
know.
wasn't cheap. They
Yeah.
charged me for that. But it has been, I'm able to go through it and see all the people who were there to support me, to remember. And I was talking to CJ about one funny incident that it reminded me of. And that was, at one point he was on a feeding tube, and it was supposed to be you were on it during the night, and so that during the day you were free. Well, he found the pressure too much. So like I said, I was a programmer, and I was able to figure out how to give it to him and the nutrition in pieces. So he would be on for 2 hours, off for 2 hours, but it was 24 hours a day.
Oh.
And I'd have to clean out the tubes, before I put in the new nutrients. And one night, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, it didn't matter. And when I had a gallon jug of water, distilled water, to clean things out or mix, I don't remember anymore. And I had just used it and put it down on the dresser. And I realized this is 3 o'clock in the morning. I've only got a little light on because, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. And I put the jug down and I hear boom. And I had obviously just put it on the edge of and we had carpeting in and I'm just, oh my God. And I looked down and the thing had fallen right side up.
Oh, thank goodness.
The top had spilled.
Thank goodness.
Fabulous.
So, but those are the kinds of things, it's like now he's been gone now 6.5 years or 6 years. It's a lot of things have faded, but
you have the gloss.
Yes.
And that's an important piece. And that's something that I have not heard from other guests. We've talked about writing, and we've talked about phone conversations and being with people but this was very important to you, and important for you to bring to us. And Nessa just said, I used to blog on WordPress when my husband was really sick. I found it a good way to communicate.
Right.
And so for those of us who don't want to hear the phone ring again, don't want to pick up the phone and say, leave me alone, this is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Elaine, thank you.
So let's talk about what Elaine decided to make for us today.
The food.
Yeah.
The food.
Well, I don't cook or bake. What I make for dinner is reservations. But I have had a few recipes over the years. And one of the, how do I explain this? My sister's mother-in-law was a terrific cook and would cook for an army. And we all lived in the same neighborhood. And she would invite me and Mel and the children over for every holiday because she would be making for the family, and she included us. So this was her recipe for what we would enjoy at her house, was the noodle kugel. And I've made it a few times throughout the years whenever, and here we have, all these friends, and we have, recipe parties, and I'm saying, oh my God, I've got 2 whole recipes. What am I going to do? But so this was my go-to, and it's delicious, but it's also a lot of calories.
Yep,
And
I've gained 17 pounds since I made it last night.
You ate the whole thing, CJ.
I ate the whole thing.
there were times it was close. But also, now my daughter moved in with me, as I said, during the pandemic, and she's vegan. And this calls for a lot of dairy.
It does.
So we have spent the last 2 weeks, I think, finding alternatives. So although this is the real recipe that you are now showing on the screen, we found alternatives for almost every ingredient. I found it's not low calorie, but low carb noodles that I used. And then butter or margarine, I used margarine. Sour cream, I found vegan sour cream. Creamed cottage cheese, I couldn't even find a vegan version of that, but I did find vegan ricotta cheese. So I used that. Then eggs are not on a vegan diet, but there are egg substitutes. Egg substitutes did it. Sugar, again, I try to watch the calories. So how many packets of stevia did we use? 30 packets of stevia. Salt, we were both allowed. The crushed pineapple and juice I used. Vanilla I used. That's not allowed, is it? It's like, and the golden raisins we had to go out and buy because we only had brown raisins. But so we made a low carb, relatively low calorie because we used stevia instead of sugar, and vegan version of this absolutely delicious treat.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let me tell you. I've got it here. I wasn't going to make the whole recipe because I shouldn't be eating dairy or wheat, but I wanted it the way it was because it reminds me of my grandmother. And
Ooh, look how pretty.
I made it in two, what do you call them, baking pans. And after the show today, one of them is being walked over to the gal who lives next door, who has, I think, her second hit with COVID. So she needs something to eat. That's
I did send out an email to several friends saying, there's too much of this. I'm giving you fair warning. It's vegan and low carb. But would you like to come over and have some?
That was a heroic effort, Elaine.
Oh, what a gal. What a gal.
Yeah.
Elaine, thank you. I knew it would be fun to have you. You're a wonderful person.
Thank you.
I've known that for a lot of years. And you still are for all the time that I've known you.
I won't tell people how long I've known you.
I was married to Elaine's cousin, and while Elaine is only a few years younger than I am, I was always
no.
You're older?
No, but a few months, not
A
years.
few months, and I was told that his younger cousin was going to be at the wedding, and I was so upset. I didn't want a little kid at the wedding. Did you come?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I'm glad. And while Elaine was living in New York, and when Mel was so very ill, and we would meet in a spot that was about halfway, and we would go hiking and then have lunch, and it was good to be with you. With that, though, let me tell you quickly about next week's guest, Alyssa Lewin. Alyssa Lewin has founded Nancy's House, and it's this beautiful site, and physical and online, where they care for the caregiver, where they put together, Alyssa and group put together retreats, meetings, times for caregivers to get away from their caregiving responsibilities, What I'm going to ask Alyssa next week is, how do you get a caregiver to give you 3 days at a retreat? That's going to be interesting. Alyssa, I look forward to seeing you. Wendy, you're going to have to tune in and watch it. And Wendy, we'll miss you.
Yes, I am going to miss you all. This is such a wonderful community, and I know it's going to grow. There's so much warmth and love here.
Absolutely.
And all of the people that I've met so far are dear to my heart. And CJ, you're always going to have that place there. So,
Oh, yay. Thank you.
let me share your email address again.
Oh, yes. We want Elaine's email, authorcjgolden@gmail.com. And if you want to be in touch with Elaine, it is, do we have it written down?
No, because what it says is if you want to reach Elaine, do so by emailing you.
Oh, no, then we change. Okay,
No?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
See, I'm just making things tough for you.
Okay.
E.A. Barlin, E.A. Barlin, Barlin, it's Gmail, right?
No, Outlook.
At
Outlook.
Outlook.com.
Yeah, Gmail will get me too, but
Yeah, E.A. Barlin at Outlook.com. She's a wealth of information, and she'll make you Google.
Google.
Wendy,
Thanks,
Elaine, and I'm CJ Golden. We know that caregiving is not a piece of cake, nor is it a hunk of kugel. But we want to help you find the sweet spot. And we'll see you next week on the Caregivers Bakery. Bye.
Bye.